Hello and welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks and I'm joined by the Lyndon Dykes to my Sinclair Armstrong. It's Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
Now, the world was shocked just days ago when Joe Biden turned to the world and decided he would no longer run to be US president. After months of speculation about whether he's simply too old, he received praise for doing the honourable thing and standing aside. But this act has led to several former championship managers wondering whether it's time for them too to call time on their careers. Take 65-year-old Mick from Barnsley, for example. A year after taking Blackpool down, Mick has decided to call it a day in management. Instead, he's opted to carry on doing what he's best at, becoming a podcaster so he can continue to subtly slag people off. His co-host is Terry Connor, who spends most episodes looking like he's trying not to cry. 61-year-old Ian from Gloucestershire is another manager who's called time on his career. Despite last taking charge of Grimsby 4 years ago, Ian's only just decided to hang up the flat cap. But after realising his football management days are behind him, he's decided to go into the milkshake business. He's just opened up his first shop in Plymouth and business is booming. The shop's name? Ian Swalloway.
So much effort has gone into that, and I want to give it as much respect as I can.
Another manager who's not given up on management. Another manager who's given up on management is Gareth from Wickham. That's despite him only being 51. But after realising he can't just catapult it to Akinfenwa anymore, he's bought his last can of Monster. He's now renovated his dungeon in Wickham so that he sleeps upside down and is awoken at 9 p.m. every day so he can travel to the nearest venue, which has an AC/DC tribute act. And finally, there's 75-year-old Neil, who lives in Cornwall. He surprised everyone by saying that he's done with management and instead plans on spending as much time as possible with his wife Sharon and his dog Paddy. His assistant, Ronnie, calls him and asks, "I can't believe this is it, Neil. You're actually retiring." All Ronnie hears down the phone is a cackle. And Ronnie realises that it's not over. It's never over, Justin.
It's never over, Ryan. It is never over. Football will always be on the phone or ready to dial the Neil Warnock number.
Yeah, I didn't say Neil Warnock. I said 75-year-old Neil from Cornwall who has a dog called Paddy.
Of course, yes. This completely made-up character in the world of Ryan Dilks.
Yes,
not Neil
exactly.
Warnock.
Yes, yeah, I'm keeping everything confidential on this side of things. Welcome to the number one championship podcast, the Second Tier. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. And today, we're picking out a key player from every championship side. Now, we're not just talking about who's the best player at each club. We're talking about which players could be absolutely pivotal for their clubs next season, whether that's someone who simply is the club's best player or someone who needs to play much better than they did last season, someone who could perhaps make the step up massively this season. Perhaps it's someone who can solve a lot of problems at their club if they have a good season, or maybe it's a young player who could have a breakthrough season. So you can find out who we think will be key for your team, but also, Justin, we can give the listener an insight into other teams heading into the new season.
Yeah, exactly. People want to know what's going on at Oxford and Sheffield Wednesday now. That's what we all want. As well as that, I think it's a good open debate as well, because there'll be fans who pick out their own players as well, and that's going to be an interesting, an intriguing insight as well. But it's getting to that time of year that we start to focus in. This is the radar zooming in on that first game of the season, and this is just the very, very beginning, or just after the very beginning of last week.
Just over 2 weeks, mate. Just over 2 weeks, Justin, until the season starts now. It still feels like it's miles away, but when you think about it, it's actually not. So this is a two-parter. In part one, we go through Blackburn to Norwich. I've got to say, by the way, Justin, it's only when I made my notes for these two episodes and I was writing down all the teams that I realised how aesthetically pleasing alphabetically the championship is this season, because we now have teams this season starting with L, M, N, O, P and Q. You know, L to Q. We've got teams for each letter of the alphabet there. Crazy.
Just makes me realise how many teams there are in the division and how much writing there is to these notes. 24 teams, Ryan. 24 teams.
It is. I will point out it's not gone up or down.
No, it
since
hasn't.
last
Never
season.
changes. Never changes. But these Premier League podcasters, they've got it easy.
I'm not sure they have. But yeah, just really caught my eye when I saw LMNOP and Q with teams with them in the Championship this season. Anyway, Justin, let's stop faffing around and get things underway with our first key player. And of course, we're starting off at Blackburn Rovers. Justin, riddle me this. Who is the player you have picked as a key player for Blackburn Rovers this season?
Riddle you this? I've picked Ryan Hedges. It's maybe a bit of a left field one. There'll be probably a few people who are like, who? And that's because Ryan Hedges didn't play a lot last season. He's restricted to just 18 appearances last season, suffered greatly with hamstring issues and amongst more. But I feel that with Blackburn last season, they lost a little bit of drive of the ball, and obviously his versatility as well to be able to play. Well, he can play just about anywhere in that final third, and he can play wing back as well. And I think Jon Dahl Thompson really did miss that element of his team when Ryan Hedges got injured. I think he's a very positive player. His crossing is sufficient. He's good at retaining the ball, and he picks the right passes as well. And I think another thing as well that plays into my mind is I don't think Blackburn are going to bring in a wealth of new players. So I think having a fit Ryan Hedges who's firing, it brings a nice balance to that John Eustace squad. Ryan Hedges will make sure, we'll keep things trim for Blackburn.
Yeah, my main memory of Ryan Hedges from last season is that very aesthetically pleasing goal he scored against Watford, where he did a few keepy-uppies and then smashed it into the back of the net, which was just beautiful. But you are right, he maybe didn't have the impact that he was hoping last season because he was kept out the side so much through injury. He is 29 now, so if he's going to have an impact, then this is it for him. So I completely get that pick, Justin. I've gone for someone who's also a forward in Blackburn. I've gone for Tyrese Dolan. Now, as we sit here right now, we don't know whether Sammy Schmodics will be at Blackburn next season. It's looking quite unlikely, it's got to be said, considering he's attracting quite a lot of interest. And we are talking about someone here who scored nearly half of Blackburn's goals last season. So that's obviously a concern if you're going to be taking him out of the lineup. So Blackburn needs someone else to step up in his shoes, and I believe Tyrese Dolan could be that guy. This will be his 5th season at Blackburn. He's had plenty of moments of magic where you thought, God, what a talented player he is. But he's also had plenty more games where he's just not been at it, been completely ineffective, and he needs to try and eradicate that from his game. Obviously, easier said than done, but it's something that he definitely needs to improve on. He needs to become that guy for Blackburn this season. He's a really, really exciting player, great dribbler, pacey. He's often been fearless when he's been taking players on, and that's what I like to see more of. He is 22 years old, so he's still got plenty of time in his career, but he's at that stage now where he needs to start establishing himself in this division. He's in the last year of his contract, which I don't know if that will, up his performance levels at all, but I would like to see Tyrese Dolan really become the player that. Remember when we first started doing this podcast, Justin? We thought, God, he looks like he could be some player. He needs to make that step up, doesn't he?
He does. He absolutely does. I think the only thing I would be concerned about is whether he can make that step up to be a consistent element for Blackburn. We've been saying it for quite a while. Is there a manager who can get a consistent tune out of him? Jon Dahl Thompson's been and gone. Tony Mowbray's been and gone. We're now on to John Eustace, who's got the opportunity to do it. I'm maybe sat on the reserve side of the fence with Tyrese Dolan. I think he's a very talented player. Technically, a lovely, lovely player to watch. And when he's on it, he's incredible. But those games when he's on it are so few and far between to the ones when he's not off it. I'm just a little bit more concerned with that one.
No, I completely understand that concern, Justin. When we see flashes of it, don't we? We see flashes of the player he could be, but consistency is such an underrated quality in a player, and Tyrese Dolan, unfortunately, hasn't really had that in his 4 years so far at Blackburn. So maybe this is the one where he can finally do it, and as we say, with Sammy Schmods probably going out the door to Blackburn, there's certainly room for him to become that guy. Let's go to Bristol City, Justin. Which player have you picked as a key player for them next season?
I think this is a pretty obvious one. I've picked Max Bird. if anyone's been listening to this show over the past few weeks, I've mentioned Max Bird and Bristol City quite a lot. And being a Derby fan, it is a little bit of a sore one seeing him leave Pride Park because he's a homegrown talent. He's one the kids will love because he's come from the very embers of the football club. And he's come out the other side.
The mean streets of Derby.
The mean streets of Derby. I think he's from Burton, actually. So they're the mean streets of Burton.
Same place, pretty much.
Mean streets of Staffordshire. But for me, if Max Bird continues his trajectory, he will be one of the best number 8s in the Championship next season. I'm very confident of that. Having watched him for a long time, having 2 seasons in League One, I think that's developed his physical attributes massively. And it's also allowed him to take the shackles off his own game and be a bit more than just a composer-type midfielder that Wayne Rooney as well, they were moulding him into that type of midfielder. Paul Warne, to his credit, has given him a licence to be more an all-action, all-rounder. Probably needs to score more goals, but he's got that ability to hit a beauty. So for me, I think Max Bird's going to be a key component for Liam Manning and Bristol City next season, and I think he'll be one of the best number 8s in the Championship as well.
I'm a big Max Bird fan, Justin. We've spoken about that on plenty of occasions. I think he was very underrated in his time at Derby. I think he had such a big influence on Derby's fortunes and played a key part in their promotion last season. How old is he now? He
23.
23, yeah. But he's still got so much room to grow, and he's so brilliant with both feet, isn't he? And just such an intelligent player for someone who is so young. So I'm excited to see how he does at Bristol City because it's one of them where he obviously signed in January and got loaned back to Derby with a view to being at Bristol City this coming season. It's quite easy to forget that he signed for them. Mm-hmm. But I'm quite looking forward to seeing how he fits into things, particularly under Liam Manning, who as we've mentioned quite a lot recently, is very good at developing young players. Speaking of which, my key player for Bristol City next season is Fally Mayulu. Now, he's Bristol City's new £2.5 million French striker from Rapid Vienna over in Austria. And Bristol City, it's got to be said, were excellent at the back after Liam Manning came in last season. Only 5 teams considered fewer goals than them from that point, 4 of whom finished in the top 6. So, quite obviously, they need to score more goals. And they'll be hoping Mayulu will be the answer to that. His goal-scoring record over in Austria isn't mind-blowing, 6 league goals last season. But he is only 22. He's an investment, and he's 6'4", which Justin will instantly like. He likes his big strikers, but he's not just a target man. We've been told quite a lot by Liam Manning in the press that he's not just a target man. He offers a lot more than that. So Bristol City clearly see a lot in him. He could be the difference maker for them next season, Justin.
Liam Manning's just wanting to obviously boost the credit that Mayulu's going to get. But he is a target man. The ball's going to go into him, and he's going to be there to have a presence in that final third. And I do agree with you. I think he's going to be a great player.
Justin, when you say target man, I think nowadays it comes with connotations of him being a bit one-dimensional. And I think what the point is I was trying to make is he's not just lump it up to him and see how many headers he can win, that kind of thing. You see what I mean?
Yeah. I think that the role of a target man is morphed because I don't think even Kiefer Moore, my fave, my heart, Kiefer Moore, I don't think he's even that type of player either. Don't get me wrong, he wins a lot of headers, but I think the target man role has evolved over the years to that Andy Carroll, get it into his noggin sort of thing, to playing it into his feet with his back to goal and bringing other players into play. And I think Mayulu, Bristol City, firstly, they've needed a player with presence in the final third because I don't think they've had a hold-up player for a long, long time. I can't recall the last one who's been through the doors at Bristol City.
Probably Jeju.
Yeah, and it's been a fair few years since he was at Ashton Gate. So having a player with that presence in the final third not only will give Bristol City more options in attack, but also get them more out of the likes of Sam Bell, Jason Knight, Anis Mehmeti as well. So yeah, I think it's an exciting one. Whether or not he scores a lot of goals is another thing, but George Hurst was brought into Ipswich last season to bring more out of the likes of Connor Chaplin and others, and I think Mayulu can fulfil the same role in the team.
Yeah, maybe not to the same effect, but I get your point. That's what the modern target man, or modern number 9 is probably a better way of describing it, will be tasked to do. And the thing is as well, Bristol City looks like Tommy Conway is heading out the door. Yeah. That's going to be a big miss. So there's a gap there for a new striker, which Mayulu obviously is. They've still got Naki Wells. you don't want to be relying on him week in, week out nowadays.
He'll still score 10 goals this season.
I'm not as convinced, but he's good for a handful of goals this season. But then you've also got Sinclair Armstrong, who's just come in from QPR, who's by no means prolific, offers a lot in other areas, but maybe not so much in front of goals. So you need Mayulu to be the guy who is scoring the goals for Bristol City next season. Let's go up to Lancashire, and it's Burnley. Justin, which player have you picked as a key player for them?
I've gone with Sander Berg. I think we saw it with Sheffield United 2 seasons ago. Sander Berg can dominate a midfield, and he can do it with poise, he can do it with comfort, he can do it with such ease as well. He shouldn't be playing in the Championship, but for some reason he's found himself at clubs that just seemingly bounce between the divisions, and Burnley are clearly another one at the moment. So I think that's our credit, because we get to watch him for another year. I didn't think that would be possible, but as I say, I think Sander Berg is one of those players who, when he drops down to the Championship, you can tell he's a top-flight player. You really can tell he's a top-flight player. And I think Burnley having him, which is quite remarkable, really, because that midfield under Vincent Kompany of Josh Cullen, Josh Brownhill, it really was a well-functioning midfield. But Sander Berg's going to come in and quite easily play one of them out. And the interesting thing here as well, Philip Billings' role in Scott Parker's Bournemouth midfield in the 21-22 promotion season was something of a box-to-box midfielder, and he got on the score sheet 11 times, played a big part in that promotion. I think Sander Berg will probably play a similar role to that one.
If he's there. The question is, will he still be there in the new season? Well, all I'm saying is just he's been linked with moves away. So that's where the concern would lie. But if Burnley do have him next season, then that's absolutely massive. Because we saw in Sheffield United's promotion season just how good he can be and how much they missed him when they sold him in the summer before last season, which obviously went completely tits up. So if Burnley managed to keep hold of him, then you've got yourself someone who's probably going to be the best midfielder in the division, just because he offers so much in so many different ways. I have gone for someone who I'm pretty certain will still be at Burnley heading into the new season. It's Lyle Foster. Now, when I picked him, I was keeping this in mind. Scott Parker's got 2 promotions from the Championship to his name, and he was massively helped in both those seasons by having an absolute bagsman up front. Alexander Mitrovic with Fulham, who scored 26 in that promotion season, and Dominic Solanke with Bournemouth, who scored 29 in their promotion season. Whether their exploits in those seasons was down to Scott Parker getting the most out of his strikers, or they were just relying on 2 very talented forwards, is a debate for another day. But he would most likely... Well, he would obviously like to have another striker who gets 25 plus goals, and Lyle Foster may be that man. He looks the most likely because he's a big physical player, kind of similar to Solanke and Mitrovic. Burnley were disappointing last season, but he was somewhat of a bright spark. 5 goals in the Premier League with a side who finished second bottom isn't terrible. It's not amazing, but it's certainly not terrible. Keep in mind as well, he's only 23. So, for some reason, I thought he was quite a bit older than that, but 23 means that he's another one who's got plenty of growing room. So, I'm quite intrigued and excited to see what Lyle Foster can bring to Burnley next season, and I would also go as far to say he's a contender to be Championship top goal scorer, because, as we were just mentioning, what Parker's done with strikers in his past 2 promotion seasons, Foster could be the one to benefit from being in a Scott Parker promotion team, perhaps.
I think the interesting thing that you mentioned about both Mitrovic and Solanke is they both needed the Championship as a springboard to be more prolific in the top flight. They came down. I know Mitrovic did have a track record of scoring goals in the Premier League, but nowhere near to the level he was scoring when he came down to the Championship. Obviously under Jukanovic, and then back down with Scott Parker. Both players use the Championship as a springboard to more success in front of goal, and Lyle Foster hopefully will do that. I think the prospect of dropping down a division can see him deliver more, especially under a new manager as well. Because he's brought in under Vincent Kompany, struggled for being that first team berth player, and then maybe he can convince Scott Parker that he's going to be the guy. But again, probably another one there. There are question marks around, but there is plenty of potential.
Yeah, there's definitely question marks around him, because last time he was in the Championship, having just made a £7 million move, I think it was, halfway through the season. It didn't really feature that much. And then when he was in the Premier League, we actually started to see more of him than we did in the Championship, bizarrely. So, it'll be fascinating to see how he gets on next season. But considering what we did see in brief glimpses in the Premier League in a struggling Burnley side, looks like he could be one, as you say, Justin, who relishes making this step down. Let's go down and to the left to South Wales.
Yes, geographically, of course.
Let's go southwest to South Wales.
Down and to the left.
Southwest from Burnley to Cardiff, where we are looking to see who Justin Peach thinks is going to be a key player for the Welsh capital this season. Justin, who you say?
I picked Old Faithful, Joe Rawls. Firstly, he's El Capitan of the club, isn't he? But more importantly, he's a consistent supplier of chances from set pieces. Cardiff have relied so heavily over the years on scoring goals from corners. Scored 21, most in the Championship last season, from corners, free kicks, etc. And Rawls has a very reliable left foot, and he will play a big part in them scoring goals again. Couple that with him being captain, it's hard to see him being dislodged. And as well as that, I think with Cardiff adding new blood into sort of the attacking areas, it's quite hard to see who's going to step up. But as I say, there's Old Faithful Joe Rawls.
Yeah, he is Mr. Cardiff at this stage, isn't he, Justin? I mean, he's been there for so long, and despite him turning 31 next season, he was still as crucial as ever for Cardiff. He made 32 starts last season, so that gives you a good idea of how he's still ever present for them. So yeah, he's still going to be an important player, and I imagine he will play the majority of games again next season. I've gone for a bit of a different flavour with my selection. I've gone with a new signing. It's Chris Willock. Now, long-time listeners of the podcast will know I'm a bit of a Chris Willock, I want to say super fan, but a big fan of Chris Willock. And I think this is a great signing by Cardiff, because if you get him back to the player he was, this will be a blinding move. That is admittedly a big if, though, because look, two or three seasons ago, he was one of the best midfielders in the division, wasn't he, Justin? He was fantastic. I think he even made our second tier team of the season in the 21-22 season. Since then, though, his confidence looks like it's completely gone. It looks like it's been completely shot, and he's been nowhere near the same player in that time since. However, if you do get him back, then it'll certainly be worth it. Errol Bullocks will have a lot of joy if he gets him anywhere near that player again. And there's going to be a lot of emphasis on Willock, with Cardiff not being the best going forwards, as we were saying in the manager rankings. Justin, they scored the fewest goals from open play last season. Chris Willock can change that if you get him back in the right mindset, because when he's confident, he is a great dribbler. He can make things happen. He also offers a goal threat. He can offer so much to a team in that final third. It's just about making him believe again that he is still the same player from 2 or 3 years ago.
With the likes of Carlin Grant and Josh Bowler, and maybe to an extent Yaku Mete as examples, do you think Errol Bullock can get the best out of Chris Willock?
Well, that's the concern, isn't it? Because I mean, Colin Grant did okay last season with Cardiff. The rest of the forward players did flatter to deceive quite a bit, even though there were the likes of Josh Bowler and Yaku Mete, as you mentioned, who in the past have been very good players at this level. Did flatter to deceive quite a bit at Cardiff, though. So I can understand your concern, Justin. Willock is still quite young, though, so he's still got time on his side, hasn't he?
Well, he has, and I think he offers that unpredictability to turn a game. You know, how often has he produced an XG busting moment where he's just scored from 35 yards, the impossible, and turned a game on its head? That's what he can offer, and I think if Cardiff, if they have a similar approach to what they did last season, where they aren't overly creative, and they need players who can step up like Chris Willock, who can literally score from 30 yards out and they can see a game out, then he's a great signing. I just don't know whether we will see the Chris Willock that we saw 2.5 years ago, or we'll see the Chris Willock that so frustratingly was inconsistent last season.
that scepticism is completely understandable, Justin. I would say at the moment it's probably more likely to be the one from the past couple of seasons, but as long as Chris Willock has still got that player inside of him, then it's just a matter of trying to get it out as a manager, isn't it? Justin, let's head over down the M6, I think. I don't know why I'm really testing myself here with...
It's the M6, M42, I think. Or I don't know. This is a risky game, a risky gamble we're playing. we could be pushing people in completely the wrong direction.
I could just be saying, let's go over to the West Midlands, but instead I've decided to really test my knowledge of Britain's road network. Let's go to Coventry, Justin. Which player have you picked as a key player for them?
I think firstly I will say is I think with Coventry you have the pleasure of being able to choose one of several players. They are oozing with quality. It's oozing out of the side of CBS. I don't know why I put so much emphasis on that, but I've gone with Tatsuhiro Sakamoto. And I actually think Coventry lost a bit of unpredictability in the final third when he got injured last February. I wouldn't say his injury was the reason why Coventry tailed off, but winning games did get harder, and it does get harder when you're missing your best players, especially in the final third. And I thought Sakamoto was great last season. He's a fan favourite as well, which will make this decision to pick him even better. But like I said, with Coventry, you can pick one of several players, and Sakamoto is just one of them. That attack's so talented next season, and I just can't bloody wait till we make our predictions and talk about them even more.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, Sakamoto, when I saw him last season, he was thrilling. It was amazing how often Coventry just put the ball out to him in not a particularly threatening position, and then he would run at a player, put them on their arse, and then create a chance out of nothing. He is just... he's just such an exciting player, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of him, because you're right, they did miss quite a lot when he got injured, Justin, so I'm really, really excited to see more of him. Be interested to see if he can add more in terms of a final product, because his dribbling is definitely his strength, and he did score quite a few goals at one stage in particular.
Yeah, and created a fair few as well.
Yeah, but it's just about doing that more often, and if you can do that, then my oh my, he's going to be a key part of an attack which you've mentioned, Justin, is full of quality, isn't it?
It really is, and I don't want to give too much away to who you're going to pick, but when you've got the likes of Ephraim Mason-Clark as well, who's just come in, obviously he went back to Peterborough on loan last season, but he's come in, he's adding depth. Jack Bradoni, goodness me, oh my God, this is just packed with quality in that final third Coventry. It's an easy job for Mark Robins next season. That being said, I may have just given it a kiss of death.
I'm not sure it's easy, because having to choose who you're going to pick each week is going to be tricky, isn't it? Because they have got so much talent in that final third. One player in particular is one Haji Wright. Now, it took a while for him to get going at Coventry, but when he did, he was on fire. 27 goal contributions in 50 games last season. It's not bad for someone who only got 5 in his first 15 games of last season. So it just seemed to really click for him when Mark Robins moved him out to the left wing, and then he scored a couple, and the rest just seemed to follow with that. He's probably a bit of a confident striker in that respect, and when he was full of confidence, he was electric, and the partnership he put together with Ellis Sims was excellent as well. It was a great starter season for him, and if he can increase his output again this season, then he can be central to Coventry's promotion push. And I'd say he's another one who's a serious contender for Championship top goal scorer next season, along with Ellis Sims, actually. Yeah. They've got a couple. So they're going to have to share the goals around. But I would say it's Justin. Would you agree?
I don't, without a shadow of a doubt. I was going to ask if you thought he was going to be in contention for the Golden Boot, but you pretty much answered that. But I think, incredibly, he was a bit of a joke figure in that first 2 months of last season, because the quality of chances he was missing was quite remarkable, really. But that turnaround in form, that position change was a bit of a masterstroke from Mark Robins, and it just got so much more out of him, and he became a hero. I mean, that finish against Wolves in the FA Cup quarter-final was just ridiculous, so late in the game. And he's become the messiah for US football as well, which is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Again, a Championship player getting that much coverage in his home country, when there are the likes of Christian Pulisic dominating the media is quite a significant thing. So, hats off to Haji Wright. I'm looking forward to seeing if he can hit the ground running again, because he had a much better first season, or a much more settling period than Victor Gyokeres did.
Yeah, that's a fair point, Justin. So that just goes to show how much he could possibly go on even further next season, doesn't it, Justin? Let's take a quick break. After that, we'll go through the rest of the key players at each team in the division. In this part of the 2 episodes, anyway, where we'll be going through Derby all the way to Norwich. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. We're picking key players for every side in the Championship ahead of the new season. And we've got one which is very close to home for you and I, Justin. We're going from Coventry up the M42 to Derby. See, I know those roads around there because I've done that journey a few times. Justin, who have you picked as the key player for your beloved Rams ahead of the new season?
I've gone with new signing Ben Osborne. I think there's an interesting thing with Derby where quite a lot of the key players from last season are over the age of 30, which makes me a little bit more sceptical. I know Ben Osborne will turn 30 in August, but I think he can offer a lot more than just versatility to that starting 11. I'll be really disappointed if Paul Warne does deploy him at left wing back. I'm really disappointed because I think he's got a lot more to offer in midfield. I think he's got plenty of quality with the ball. He's got energy. He's got tenacity, and that's essentially what Paul Warne's going to try and build a squad around. And I think Osborne has that little bit more quality than the likes of Ebou Adams, for example. That Derby are probably going to need to edge games if they're going to have any chance of staying in the Championship this season. I think he's a good signing, a really good signing. He's experienced. He's going to add an element of leadership. As well as that, he's a local lad. I was
going to say, Justin, you're not hyping it up enough. This is the return of the prodigal son, isn't it?
I don't know if it's the prodigal son because he made his name at Forest. I don't know if he fits that bill just a little bit, but he is from Spondon in Derby. That's not really information viewers need to know, but he is very local. And it's a stone's throw away from Pride Park, which is obviously where they play. So that's how local he is.
Yeah. Well, he's a big Derby fan, isn't
Yeah.
he? And despite his previous allegiances with Forest, he's always been a Derby fan. So it's big that he's come back to Derby, and he, looking at it from a tactical point of view, he is pretty much a Paul Warne player, isn't he? Very hardworking, able to play in loads of different areas. It seems a bit odd that it's taken this long for him to come to Derby, but it just seems to be the kind of move which suits all parties and has just come at the right time for both at these moments in time. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Ben Osborne. I know he's had a tricky couple of years at Sheffield United where he was a bit of a bit part player, but at Derby, there's going to be a lot more of an emphasis on him, and it could be something that really rejuvenates his career, I think.
I hope so, yeah. Sorry.
Go on, Justin, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say I hope that's the case, because I think when you go to a club and you are that bit part player, it's very hard to see what you want to get out of your career, I imagine, as a footballer. But when you when you do make that change, I think it gets a lot more out of you, and I think that's what Derby are going to tap into. There's the homegrown aspect, there's the chance of first team football, and obviously the quality he brings as well.
I thought Derby's key player for the new season, I've gone with Aaron Cashin. Now, I'm a big Aaron Cashin fan. He's only 22 and has already spent the last 2 seasons being by far and away the best defender in League One. So it's no surprise to me that he's been strongly linked with a move to the Premier League. In fact, on deadline day last summer, he spent over 6 hours in a Starbucks in Derby waiting to find out if he was going for a medical down in Brighton before the move fell through. But ultimately, if Brighton are interested in you, you must be doing something right. And there's usually a strong chance that you're a very good player. But because he is only 22, it's quite surprising, really, that he is as good as he is. He reads the game exceptionally well. He's quick, also fearless in a challenge as well. And Derby are going to have to keep it tight at the back next season, because looking at their attack right now, so if they're going to stay up, they need to keep out as many goals as possible. And Aaron Cashin will be massive for that, as long as he continues his fine form and his general ability, which has grown tremendously over the past couple of years at Derby.
Is that a technical term?
And I think it's something that I may introduce a lot more heading into the new season, particularly as we do our predictions in the next couple of weeks, Justin.
That's absolutely fair. I do agree with you. I think I do agree with you on the attack front. I do like and rate Cash in. I just think maybe I do disagree on some points with him. I think he can be too rash sometimes. He can get too tight to players who turn in very easily. I remember Joe Taylor, on loan from Luton at Lincoln last season. I think he did it about 6 times in a game. So I think it's very easy to get excited by Cash in because I do think he has a lot of potential. But I'm just a bit more measured on him. I really am, especially when he's coming up against more players of a high technical profile than ones he came up against in League One.
I'm not sure I necessarily agree, but it's going to be interesting to see how he makes the step up, Justin, because obviously big step up, going from playing against strikers in League One to strikers in the Championship next season. Of course, we've already mentioned quite a few very talented forwards already, so that's going to be a big test for him. But if he makes that step up, still only being 22, then he's going to have plenty more admirers than he already has done, hasn't he? Now, at the time of recording, there isn't many players to choose from at Hull City. Put it plain and simply, I have no idea who's playing for Hull next season, so it was quite difficult choosing a key player, wasn't it, Justin? So, Despite all that, who have you picked as a key player for Hull City next season?
I've actually gone with a player whom I bang the drum about quite a lot, and that's Regan Slater. I like Regan Slater quite a lot. I think the only thing I'll hold against Liam Rosenior was playing at right back sometimes last season. But for me, he's probably one of the best value for money signings in the Championship in recent years. He was bought for 50k when Hull were in League One, and he's become a very, very dependable, important player for the Tigers. Very busy, very tenacious, and his engine is incredible. I think every team needs a Regan Slater who's going to drive a press, he's going to drive a team forwards, and with a quality that has seemingly left the door and yet to be replaced, there's going to be a need for him to step up and be a greater influence in that team. So, yeah, almost by default, the players that we've picked are here. I picked Regan Slater. Who have you gone with?
Before I go on to who I've gone with, one thing that's going to be really important, particularly if Hull are looking so thin on the ground in terms of bodies in the new season, it's very good to have someone like Regan Slater who's very versatile, isn't he?
Versatile and plenty of energy. You can cover several positions at once.
Yeah. Even if they're only playing 5-a-side against an 11-side team, you can make up for that extra, for at least one extra man. I've gone for someone who I'm actually cautiously excited about heading into next season, despite the lack of personnel at Hull. It's Abdul Kadir Omer. Now, he's a 25-year-old midfielder who Hull signed on deadline day in the January window from Trabzonspor. Perhaps he went a bit under the radar in that window because of other signings, i.e. Fabio Carvalho and Anna Sarori, etc. But Hull paid £2 million for him, and before joining, he started nearly every game for a Trabzonspor side, who were third in the Turkish Super League at the time, and actually finished third as the season went on, but that's by the by. And Hull's form wasn't outstanding after he joined, but he caught my eye on plenty of occasions, and I've seen plenty of Hull fans say he could become their main man next season. He's a tricky dribbler. He'll be asked to take the ball in the middle of the box and make things happen. And considering how thin Hull's squad is looking in terms of talent and general bodies, he'll undoubtedly be a very important player next season. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of him at Hull City, Justin.
Yeah, he's a bit of an unknown quantity, isn't he? Obviously, I think with the lights and glamour of the signings of Fabio Carvalho and Anis Saruri and Billy Sharp last January, I think that signing can go under the radar. But like you said, I think he's still got a lot of unanswered potential. He was once linked with Arsenal and Bayern years ago. Also once labelled a wonder kid, so he's a big tick in my eyes. But even before joining Hull, was still creating goals for Trabzonspor, as you said, and I think that's a big thing. And I think a manager like Tim Walter, who's going to put emphasis on attack and individual quality, I think it might be a shrewd bit of business, even if it was 6 months ago.
We're now going from Humberside to West Yorkshire, Justin. It's Leeds United. Another club who it's quite tricky to say who's actually going to be playing for them when the season actually starts. But nonetheless, who have you gone for as their key player?
I've gone with Ethan Ampadu. Now,
someone we know will be at Leeds next season.
Yeah, almost not to sort of cause speculation, but seeing the likes of Somerville and Nonto linked with moves away from Leeds, I'm surprised that the clubs aren't sniffing around Ethan Ampadu either, because he's so bloody good. He's just so good. And I think if the balance is right at Ellen Road next season and Pastoral Strikes fit alongside Joe Rodon, put Ethan Ampadu back in that midfield, I think it will have a greater impact on those games that Leeds found themselves losing last season. Not only is it a solid outfit in that 4-2-3-1 that Daniel Farke's going to want to play, but he can break lines with his passing as well, get the ball into those advanced players in those better areas, which I think will be a key thing for Leeds.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you've said there, Justin. He's just been made captain as well, so he's going to be given the added authority of being, the captain.
Collecting fines.
Yeah, and just being a big influence in that respect as well. But I think you've got to emphasise that point about him being moved back into midfield. I think Leeds at times looked a bit flimsy in the middle of the park towards the end of last season. Not having Ampadu there was a real issue for them, I think, even though he was so fantastic at centre-back for large parts of the second half of last season. So him being back in midfield is going to be big. He's undoubtedly one of the best midfielders in the division because he's just simply so intelligent. And I think you're absolutely right as well. Should be attracting a lot more interest from the Premier League, but Leeds won't be complaining if he's with them for another season. I've gone for quite an interesting one. I've gone for Brendan Aronson. Now, quite a fascinating turn of events for him. Joined Leeds for £25 million a couple of years ago when Leeds were in the Premier League. Didn't impress at all for them. Leaves on loan, goes to Union Berlin, doesn't do much there either, and is now back at Leeds where he said he wants to be part of their promotion push. So he's got a second chance. Not many get that at a big historical club like Leeds United, and he needs to make the most of it. Because he was getting big rave reviews for his performances with Salzburg in Austria before joining Leeds, hence why he cost £25 million. So there's obviously a very talented player in there. And he is still only 23, so time is on his side. And of course, Leeds is a great platform for him to showcase what he's all about. But it's got to be said, what we've seen so far, particularly over the past couple of years in his career, he definitely needs to make a massive, massive step up. And Leeds will be certainly counting on him to make that step up because, as we were alluding to, it's quite hard to say who's going to be at Leeds next season. Somerville, Nonto, Ruta, all been linked with moves away. So the baton could fall to Brendan Aronson to be one of, possibly even their main attacking threat next season. So he's got to make that step up.
Yeah, you've picked a player that no one's going to want, which is a safe bet. Because he's been poor.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, because he's been poor. Again, he gets a lot of love and attention in the States. Naturally, he's seen as a key part in that next generation of football in the US. But I think he's very, very lucky. I think he's very, very lucky to still find himself at a club like Leeds, the size of Leeds and the potential of Leeds. Because he was really, really poor for Union Berlin last season, really poor. Struggled for consistency, struggled to hold down a regular starting place as well. It was quite an underwhelming loan spell, a really underwhelming loan spell, and that's probably being a bit kind to him. I think he's very fortunate to still be at Leeds, even if he is loaned out again, because I would argue there might be better place at the club, even if the key components are sold. So I'm a little bit. I'm a bit touch and go with Brendan Aronson. I need to see more of him to be really convinced by him because, as I say, what I've seen so far, I've not been impressed at all.
No, I completely agree, Justin. That's why he's got to make the step up because not many players get a chance like this to get back into the fold of things. I mean, he did cost £25 million, so Leeds will be hoping to see some of that return, and this is his chance to show what he is capable of, because I'm sure many Leeds fans are wondering what they spent that £25 million on. Let's go down the M1 to Luton, Justin. Who have you picked as a key player for them?
Take a wild bloody guess, Ryan. Take a wild guess.
Is it your
Listeners
boy?
will know. It's my boy, CM9. Is he number 9? Is he number 9 for Luton?
It doesn't matter. We know who you mean.
Yeah. It's Carlton bloody Morris. I love him so much. I think as a viewer of the Premier League last season, it would have been great to see Luton stay in the Premier League to upset the elite and the establishment. But I tell you what, having Carlton Morris back in the Championship is fantastic. I love him. He automatically becomes favourite for Golden Boot. I don't think there's a more complete number 9 in the Championship. Fight me. I'm offering everybody
I'm
out.
fine, mate. I'm agreeing with you. I'll be shaking your hand. It's fascinating, really, because Carlton Morris, for me, was a Premier League ready striker.
He was.
When they got
He
promoted.
is.
And actually, Adebayo outshone him in the Premier League to a certain extent, which I didn't really expect at all. But it's great to have him back in the Championship, because I think he could be one who takes this season by the horns and properly runs with it. So, yeah, it's going to be really fascinating. He's been in pre-season playing in a front two with him and Adebayo. So those two working together, it could be an attack to fear, Justin.
It will be an attack to fear, Ryan. Not only are they both physically so good in the Championship, but they both can add goals and have got goals in abundance. Carlton Morris scored 20 in the 22-23 season. He got 11 last season in the Premier League and 4 assists. And he also boils a piss of opposition. And if you've got defenders keeping an eye on Carlton Morris, Adebayo is free. It is a strike partnership that is frightening, because they can both do similar things. And for a defence to have to be able to grapple that is very difficult. Very difficult. But yeah,
definitely.
Carlton Morris, my boy.
And my key player for Luton heading into the next season is the player who looks like he's going to be playing behind those two heading into next season. It's Tahith Chong. Now, as I say, Luton so far in pre-season have been playing with a front two of Morris and Adebayo. And Chong has started every single game where he looks like he's been playing as a number 10 behind those two strikers. So it's going to be fascinating to see how that all gels together. But it's also very exciting. Look, Tahith Chong has this unique ability of just being able to glide across a pitch. He is such a wonderful player to watch, and he held his own in the Premier League last season. I think I saw quite a bit of scepticism when they signed him from Birmingham, but he more than held his own and made an impact. Of course, he would have liked to have made more of an impact because Luton went down, but he still made an impact nonetheless. And I don't know if it's whether just because he's got massive hair, but he certainly stood out to whenever I saw him for Luton in the Premier League. But it's going to be fascinating to see how that all works with that front three. Of course, we all know what Luton are about. It's all about a lot of graft and a lot of teamwork. Chong offers that, but he also offers a lot of creativity, and a lot of that creative responsibility will fall on the shoulders of Tahith Chong heading into the new season. So it's a big season for him, it's a big season for Luton, and I think he can play a massive part in what they will be hoping will be another promotion season, Justin.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything, and you've pretty much taken everything I was going to say about him. He's got so much elegance about him when he does play. He's such a gifted player, and he brings a lot of set-piece quality as well. I think the thing I will bring up is that he was sold for £4 million, and Juninho Bukuna is being sold for £6 million. Which I think is an incredible turn of events, that Juninho Bukuna went for more than Tahith Chong, because I think Chong's got so much more about his game than Bukuna. It feels like a bit of a slight on Bukuna.
Yeah, it does.
I'm saying now. Yeah, maybe uncalled for, but I'm just saying the economics of football works in mysterious ways. Chong is worth much more than that.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that, Justin, completely. Completely unnecessary segue, but I do agree with you. Yeah, Chong's a fantastic player, and this is going to be one season where he can really catch plenty of eyes with Luton dropping down another level. Justin, let's go up to Middlesbrough. Have you picked as their key player, big boy?
I've gone with Finn Azaz. I feel like Middlesbrough is stacked with players, but I'm not 100% sure on. I'm just not 100% sure on them. But Finn Azaz is probably the most convincing one I've got to pick out of. Like, I would have picked Riley McGree, for example. He's the one that came to mind first, but injury problems held him back last season. Obviously went to the Asia Cup as well with Australia. Won't have that next season, but injuries might hold him back. But Finn Azaz, he's such a talent, and I think if Middlesbrough are going to have any success in that final third, Finn Azaz being on form is going to be a big part in that. He scored 11 last season, assisted 10 altogether, both for Plymouth and Middlesbrough. He's a chance-creating machine. And I think if Borough are going to be as dynamic as they have been under Michael Carrick, Finn Azaz is going to hit double-figure goals and assists once again. He's such a remarkable signing, and again, a player who probably should have got a lot more interest in him than what he did. But it should have been a much harder task for Borough to sign him last January than it was. It seemed a very simple one. And as I say, Finn Azaz, the quality he brings to that team is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think Middlesbrough could go a bit under the radar for people heading into next season, and one of the reasons for that is because outsiders perhaps don't recognise how talented a boy Finn Azaz is. He is some player. We saw that in abundance at Plymouth last season, and they really lost. They really missed him, didn't they? When they sold,
he brings mojo.
They didn't actually sell him because he was on loan. It was Villa who sold him, wasn't it? But
Yeah.
they certainly missed out on him. And then maybe I think he still played pretty well actually for Middlesbrough when he joined. But I think he could definitely take his game to a whole new level under Michael Carrick. So he's certainly one to keep an eye on heading into next season. Just now, completely agree with you on that. I've gone with someone who would be hoping for quite a bit of service from Finn Azaz heading into next season. It's Emmanuel Latte Lath. Now, Middlesbrough had a very slow start to last season, and a big part of that was not putting away their chances. A big offender in that regard was their new striker, Emmanuel Latte Lath, who they spent £5 million on. It's fair to say he took a fair while to get going. However, his form in the back end of last season was ridiculous. 11 goals in Middlesbrough's final 12 games of the season. If that's a sign of what's to come, then blimey, he could fire them into the Premier League. Pretty much by himself. He's another strong shout for Championship top goal scorer. I'll tell you that much for sure, particularly in a Michael Carrick side, where there is that massive emphasis on attack. And Middlesbrough will be aiming for the top 6 at the very minimum this coming season. A lot of their chances in doing that will depend on Emmanuel Latte Lath replicating his form from the end of last season. And if he does that, then top 6 could be the very, bottom of their expectations, I suppose.
Well, the thing that Borough have missed, or missed last season, was a prolific goal scorer, and it wasn't until the final third of the season that Latte Lath became a prolific goal scorer. That's essentially what held him back from getting into that top 6. I think it's just one of those I'd approach with caution, because if you do get the laugh of the first third of the season, this shout could look very embarrassing. If you get the laugh of the final third of the season,
the latter laugh.
Oh my God, yeah. If you get the no, you've confused me.
Do
now.
it. That was good. That was clever.
I can't think of anything smart enough to say. First third laugh, bad laugh, latter laugh, good laugh.
Yes, there you go.
That's it.
Good, great analysis as always. But let's go down to Luton Town, where we have Millwall. Justin, who have you gone with as the key player for them?
It's no surprise to see who we've both picked and what we think Millwall, or how we think Millwall are going to play next season. I've gone with defender Jake Cooper. I just think Millwall are going to play with their backs to the wall. It's going to be a key component in that ethos underneath Neil Harris, and Jake Cooper has been a central figure in basically being just a very sturdy, consistent 7 out of 10 weak defender. Aerially, his size is a big giveaway and how dominant he is, but his leadership in the team is going to be vital as well. He's experienced, he loves a battle, and I think sat centrally in that back three, he's so good. Can pop up with a goal from a set piece as well, which I think will be important for Neil Harris's side. It's just very hard to get excited about that final third. Ian Fleming's got a lot of speculation linking him with the move away. Am I convinced by Tom Bradshaw, Kevin Nisbet, Macaulay Langstaff? Not right now. So yeah, going with a centre back.
Yep, I have gone with Jake Cooper's centre back partner. I've gone with Japhet Tanganga. Now, only Sheffield Wednesday and Rotherham scored fewer goals than Millwall last season. So far this summer, I don't think enough has changed to make me think they're going to be more free scoring next season. So pretty much following on from what you were just saying, Justin, if Millwall are going to stay up or stay clear of the bottom three, they'll need to be extremely tight at the back again. They conceded the fewest goals in the league after Neil Harris came in. And a big part of that was Japhet Tanganga. He only missed 5 minutes for Millwall after Harris's appointment. The centre-back partnership he and Jake Cooper had was rock solid because they were playing with a 3 at the back for various stages of last season. It was only when Harris came in where they went to a 4 at the back, and then it was down to Tanganga and Cooper to be as solid as they were. And they were absolutely rock solid. You know, Tanganga makes up for Cooper's lack of pace, I suppose, but he's also very physical when it comes to winning the ball in the air as well. He's a really good defender. I was really quite impressed with this signing, actually, from Millwall. And he was, of course, on loan at last season at Millwall. They've now got him permanently. He could prove to be a really important signing for the Wall, Justin.
Do you think it's a signing, again, we've mentioned going under the radar quite a lot, do you think it's a signing that will surprise quite a few people, that he's gone to Millwall? Because I think it's something of a coup to get a player of his age and his potential as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think he's actually quite a bit older than I thought he was, but still, considering he was playing somewhat regularly for Spurs at one point in the league, then yeah, he's certainly someone who's got a lot of pedigree. And it was quite surprising that Millwall managed to get him in, but fair dues to them. It's someone who could prove to be a very good signing for many years to come. So yeah, I do agree with what you were just saying, Justin. Final one, Justin, before we end this part of the 2 episodes, we shall go over to Norfolk, where we find Norwich City. Justin, who have you picked as a key player for them? In fact, let's be honest, I think there are only 2 obvious candidates really for key players, weren't there, really?
Well, 2 or 3. I've picked Josh Sargent. As I say, it's one of the Holy Trinity, isn't it? I think Josh Sargent, if he's still at the club, he's going to score 15, 20 goals. Again, if he's still at the club and he stays fit as well. This is the crazy thing about Josh Sargent. His goals to game ratio last season was ridiculous. It's one of those where if he didn't pick up that ankle injury just after September, or just in September, he really could have been scoring 25, 30 goals, and he's smashing Sammy Szmodic's Golden Boot achievement. But it wasn't to be. But he was vital in Norwich finishing in that top 6 last season, because I think without him and without his goals and his contribution in the final in the second half of last season, they'd have had no chance. He's just a player who knows where the goal is. He knows his role in a team as well. He's a hard-working individual, but he's got so much quality in the final third as well. It's quite ridiculous how alive he becomes. In and around the box, he's a wonderful player to watch, because he just knows what to do in and around the box. He's a great player to watch.
Yeah, I'd just like to put an asterisk next to what I was saying before, because it sounded like I was saying Norwich only have 2 good players. But they have got 2 players in particular who are, quite a way talented more than the rest of the team. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
They've got a good squad of very good Championship players, but they've got 2 in particular who are clearly Premier League players. But going back to Sargent, I completely agree with you, Justin. I think if he was there for completely fit for the whole season, then yeah, you'd be looking towards nearly 30 goals, maybe even more than that, with Sargent, because he was just on fire when he was fully fit last season. And a big part of that was, of course, the service he was getting from one Gabriel Sara. He's the one I've gone for as a key player for them next season, which is completely not a surprise considering he got 13 goals plus 12 assists last season. I am just bamboozled by the fact that there wasn't more interest in him. He's quite clearly a Premier League player. How is there not more interest in Gabriel Sara? He's a fantastically talented player, but Norwich won't care that there isn't any interest in him, because they've managed to hold on to him for another season. And fair play to them, because he is going to be such a massive player again for Norwich City next season. He just offers so much to a team, doesn't he? Whether it's a goal threat, whether it's someone to create chances, whether it's someone to spread the play or just retain possession. He is such a marvellous player. And it's fantastic that Norwich have managed to keep hold of him, because under this new era that we have with Johannes Hoff-Thorpe in charge as the manager and the new sporting director, it's good that we've still got some consistency from before in the form of 2 exceptionally talented players in Sara and Sargent. Yeah,
it's quite interesting that we haven't seen news item after news item of Premier League teams coming in for the likes of Sargent or Sara. It just seems inevitable that one of them is going to go for 25 million pounds.
I've seen interest with Sargent, but not anything too serious.
Nothing concrete. There's not been too much noise, has there? Which is the crazy thing, because
Justin, Sara not getting any interest genuinely astounds me, because it just seems like he's a ready-made Premier League player, honestly.
Exactly. And I think, not to deter away from Norwich at all, It just goes to show how quality these two are, and how, I wouldn't say lucky Norwich are to have them, but if they've got them going into the start of the season, it enhances Norwich's chances of finishing the top 6 under Thorpe, and it makes Thorpe's job so much easier to have these quality players at his disposal. And again, if Thorpe's going to want to play through the thirds, play that possession style, Gabriel Sara is going to be bloody good to watch under him. Yeah. It's an exciting proposition, only if Norwich keep them.
Which they probably will do, judging from the lack of interest I've seen so far with them. But yeah, it's going to be frightening thinking that Norwich last season managed to get in the top 6 with these two playing pivotal roles under a manager who did a decent job, in fairness to him, but wasn't the most convincing. Now we've got a manager who the sporting director is fully behind, and he's still got these two very talented players at his disposal. It's quite remarkable, really, isn't it? There we go, ladies and gentlemen. This has been part 1 of us picking a key player for every Championship side ahead of the new season. Who do you think will be your club's key player this coming season? The best way to get involved is either by quote tweeting or replying to our new episode tweet that we've put out for this episode. It'll be pinned on our Twitter or X profiles. So let us know whether you agree with us or whether you think it's going to be somebody else. We're always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say. But look, we'll be back again on Monday for part 2. We'll be going through the rest of the clubs in the Championship. So we bloody look forward to seeing you then. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.